So if you want to try a glucose monitor, but what should you actually practically do if you want to get the most out of using one of these things? A lot of people are going to argue that if you don't have diabetes, you don't need a glucose monitor. But what if I told you you can use these to increase your energy levels, focus, and even speed up fat loss? Well, that's what I'm going to do in this video. And this isn't just my opinion. It's a combination of my opinion, lived experience, scientific research, and everything I've learned by making these products for 6 years. Hi. Yeah, so you probably have no idea who I am, and that makes sense. So some quick credentials. Hi, I'm Jared. I was a mechanical and biomedical engineer at Ohio State. I worked in the medical device space for over 7 years, where I was most recently a product lead at Dexcom, one of the leading medical device manufacturers for continuous glucose monitors. I also advise companies on go-to-market strategy and wearable technology development. And I've had type 1 diabetes for over 16 years. Cool, back to the video. Here's not what I'm going to say. If you want to reverse your diabetes, you have to take this supplement. Or carbs are the enemy, keep your glucose spikes as low as possible. If your glucose spikes, you're in trouble. Or CGMs are silly. If you don't have diabetes, you don't need to try one of these things, like blah, 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 blah. No, I've worked on these things for 6 years. So I know these things inside and out. And I want to share how you can get the most out of trying one of these powerful tools to better understand your health. And in order to do that, I'm going to break that down into 3 main use cases. 1, what is a glucose spike? 2, how to use these to improve your energy levels. And 3, how can they be used for speeding up fat loss perhaps? My friend's dad's cousin's father told me I needed to say that I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice. This is everything I'm sharing from my own lived experience and everything I've learned from working in the industry for 6 years and being in this space for almost 2 decades. If you want medical advice, talk to your doctor. Now that we got that out of the way, let's rock and roll. You want to understand what a glucose spike is. You probably just put a glucose monitor on, saw your glucose levels go up after you ate something, and freaked out and said, oh my gosh, do I have diabetes? Just because your glucose levels went up does not mean you have diabetes. That's normal. You are now part of a larger trend where more and more people are getting access to these incredible devices to better understand your overall health. And my job is to help you better make sense of that data. First, let's do an oversimplification of what blood glucose is. Think of glucose as the sugar floating around in your bloodstream that is one of your body's main sources of energy. Your body can either use fat or glucose for energy. And think of it as like a hybrid vehicle. Your body can either use the fat or the glucose. And when you actually have glucose, whether you do that through eating a meal that has carbohydrates or bread or fruit or something with carbs in it, that can convert it into glucose in your bloodstream. So when you eat that, your blood sugar will go up. And your body decides, based off what you're doing, to use that either as a source of energy or store it as fat for later. And the way it uses that is through this tool called insulin. Insulin will either transport those glucose molecules into your cells and use it for energy, or it'll store it as fat for energy later. But when you have insulin in your bloodstream, it's actually a signal to your body that I don't need fat for energy right now. Glucose spikes are normal. That can be caused by certain foods, activities, or even exercise. The goal here is not to completely eliminate glucose spikes, but to understand what pushes your glucose out of healthy ranges so you can better keep it in range for a greater amount of time. One more reminder is that glucose monitors actually measure the interstitial fluid glucose levels and not your direct blood glucose levels. Your interstitial fluid is actually a 15-minute delay behind your blood glucose levels. You want to improve your energy levels. In my opinion, this is the biggest benefit of trying a glucose monitor out. If you understand what spikes your glucose, you have more consistent energy. It's normal for your glucose levels to rise when you eat carbs. That's how your body works. But the problem happens when you eat stuff with really high carbs in it, and it sends your glucose levels up really high and it comes crashing back down. And that's when you start to have really low energy, brain fog, and you're probably gonna go get a second cup of coffee. That's what you want to avoid, the drastic glucose swings. And that's the power of a glucose monitor. The glucose monitor helps you understand how to connect the dots between certain foods you eat and how you feel. Most healthy people want to keep their glucose levels in between 70 to 140 milligrams per deciliter. And generally, according to the scientific research, it's recommended to stay in time and range of above 90%. If you want me to break down why your glucose goes high or even why it could go low, let me know in the comments and I can make another video about that. You want to use a glucose monitor for fat loss. This one's a little tricky and sometimes controversial, but they can be used as tools to help speed up losing fat. Let me try to simplify that for you. When your glucose spikes really high, it's a signal to your body that I don't need to burn fat because I have enough glucose for energy instead. And the way that happens is when your body releases insulin to process that extra glucose, you're gonna have a high amount of insulin if you have a lot of glucose in your bloodstream. And that insulin is actually a signal to your body that it can stay in fat storage mode because I have enough energy for, the glucose that's in my body. So the less spikes that you have, the more your body's able to switch into fat burning mode from fat storage mode. That's one of the best parts about a CGM. A CGM will tell you what pushes your body into fat storage mode more often. Here's an important nuance. Just because your glucose spikes doesn't mean it immediately switches your body into fat storage mode. If you're moving and you need that glucose for energy, then it's going to be immediately used by your muscles. And that's why movement is probably the best tool for managing your glucose levels. Your muscles are the biggest sponge for glucose. And I want to emphasize this again. A CGM isn't just some magic fat loss device. And just because you keep your glucose levels in a super tight range doesn't mean you're going to magically lose a ton of weight. It's a tool to accelerate behavior change and help you get there faster. So it'll tell you what foods are pushing you into these fat storage modes and better help you understand what foods might not be as healthy for your body personally. There are some studies that are starting to show that these really big glucose spikes can actually lead to the storage of visceral fat, which is the really bad fat that leads to high mortality, and it's not good for your overall health. But it's pretty early, and that might just be because they're in, obese populations and they have high visceral fat in their body already. Please keep in mind that just because something does not spike your glucose does not mean it's necessarily good for you. For example, I love bacon, and bacon doesn't really spike your glucose levels, but obviously it has a ton of saturated fat. So just because it doesn't spike your glucose levels does not mean it's immediately healthy for you. Remember, everything in moderation. Glucose monitors are really good for behavior change, but it's not a magic fat loss device. It really just shows you what in your diet is affecting you and how it impacts your glucose levels and maybe ending up with more fat storage. But I still always emphasize the best way to also accelerate fat loss is by moving more and lifting heavy weights. So think of it as one big piece in the puzzle, but it's not the only thing that's gonna make you burn fat. In summary, here are the 3 simple things you need to know if you want to get the most out of trying a continuous glucose monitor. Number 1, glucose spikes are normal, and glucose monitors help you understand what spikes your glucose and how you can keep them in normal, safe, and healthy ranges. Number 2, you want to minimize the intensity and frequency of glucose spikes to keep your energy levels high throughout the day. Number 3, you can use a glucose monitor to burn fat, but it should not be the only tool you rely on to do that. It's one part of the bigger puzzle. If you want to better understand your overall health and energy levels, I strongly recommend you try a glucose monitor out at least once. All right, that's it for me here. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have any questions about what I said or anything else you want me to talk about more. I'm going to be posting more videos in the future about metabolic health, glucose monitors, and no BS tips on how to be healthy. All right, see ya.